All right, everybody, welcome to the Glass Less Traveled livecast. My name is Mike Verivi. I am a certified bourbon steward and founder of the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. We're going to explore and introduce you to craft distilleries, microbreweries, industry insiders, and professional imbibers to give you the inside scoop on the things you need to be drinking. Tonight, we're talking with my buddy Steve Newman over at Brother Chimp Brewing. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, all things considered. You always have to throw that caveat.
Yeah. For those of us that don't know Brother Chimp or aren't aware of where you are, who you are, where are you located, and how can people go about buying your beer to try it?
So we're located just west of Randall Road on West Orchard Road, same little strip mall as Douglas Flooring is in, and just past Raimondo's Pizza. Easiest way to get our beer is give us a call, 630-800-1724. You can look online on our website, which is just www.brotherchimp.com. And there will be a list and description of our beers there as well. Occasionally, we may have a guest tab that may or may not be on there. So if you call us, we can tell you about that. About the beers, you can purchase them as growlers, howlers, or 16-ounce twisty cans. So we try and kind of let you have it your way with the twisty cans. You're not restricted to a 4-pack of any one, so it's a great way to try our different beers if you haven't had a chance to do that before. So that's how that's the easy way to get our beer. And we'll do contactless curbside pickup for you. We just take your credit card over the phone and we're all good.
Sure. So let's talk about the beer styles over at Brother Chimp. What can we find at the brewery as far as what styles people are looking for?
So basically, my slogan is craft beers that taste like beer. And that's because I try and go with a little more traditional styles of beer. I'm trying to bring back the malt. So right now, our current offerings, or what we started with, was we have a blonde ale, just like a classic. It's great. Mow the lawn and have a beer. Blonde ale, great for the summertime. So what's coming up? We also had and will have back shortly traditional West Coast IPA. So just 6%, not overly hoppy, something really nice and refreshing from an IPA standpoint. Mm-hmm. Then we have our Brigadoon was the first beer that we launched, which is my take on an ESB. So just think kind of like a classic pub ale, really easy drinking, just like 5.5% ABV. So let's see, I've given you 3 so far, right?
3 so far, yeah, and you've got a few more on there. You've got a pretty good selection.
We've got 6 right now that are ours. So then we also have our brown ale, which I call Smile. It's got a little bit of espresso in there and vanilla, but very mild notes of those. Actually, I think you get almost more coffee flavor from the chocolate malt that I put in it than from the minor amount of coffee that goes in it. And that originally was going to be called the best way to start your day, because that just really long, and I always feel like Smile is the best way to start your day.
I feel like there probably would have a cease and desist letter in there somewhere too from Folgers. Excuse me, sir.
So, and then the final 2 are my Irish ales. So I have a red ale, which I really love. It's a very dark red ale because I do love barley and chocolate malts. So it's very malty, nice dry finish. I love it. And then I also have my classic dry Irish stout, which I don't know why nobody seems to make in the craft world, the dry Irish stout. Mm-hmm. I love it because it's easy drinking. It's something along the lines of a Guinness. It's just 4.2%. I think you'll find most of my beers are between 4 and 6% ABV. Both the Kima and the Stout are at 4.2, so nice beers you can sit down and have more than one and not get yourself in trouble. The Smile, that goes as high as 6.5, 6.7 sometimes, so you want to be careful with that one. But mostly I try and make easy drinking beers.
Okay. So when we look at the brewery industry, experimentation and innovation within craft brewing industry are providing styles like milkshake IPAs, pastry stouts, and beers that are loaded with different adjuncts to create truly unique products. Brother Chimp has stuck to a very traditional list of beers. Is there anything that you want to try brewing in the future that takes a step towards these new styles of beer?
Actually, I'll probably want to go. We'll explore more old styles of beer that will bring different flavors to them. Like I'm partial farmhouse ales, saisons, and Belgians. I like a lot of unique flavors that already exist in those beers. I also tried to set it up so I have 12 taps going. My intention, because I just have a 5-barrel system, is to try and keep 8 of those loaded up with beers that I'll create. And I know there's a love of all these other flavors out there that, I want to make what I don't think I'm going to make as well as the next guy. So actually right now, in terms of a bigger IPA, I do have the Imperial Rye IPA from my good friend Alex up at D&G on tap. And I also grabbed Orange Mountain from Brewer's Kitchen out of Pilot Project, which is a double dry hopped IPA with lactose and some nice orange.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like a milkshake, but it's not all hazy.
Right.
So that's why I figure I've got the taps. I want to have something for everybody, but with my limited resources, I want to brew the things that I think I know will do well.
Right. As an industry insider and as a brewery owner, what trends in beer do you see emerging, and what trend do you think will be the next big thing in beer?
Big thing is hard to say. Trend, it's going to sound kind of biased, but I think people are going to trend back to more of the classic styles of beer. At least I hope so. That's kind of what I've done. And I think also the more sessionable beers, which is the other thing that I'm aiming for. I think people want to get to a point where they can have more than one beer and not be wrecked by it.
Right.
And so to be a hangout, you don't need a lot of ABV in the beer to put a lot of flavor into the beer.
Right.
So I think that's it, and we'll see though. I mean, I would have thought the hazy IPAs would have died a while ago, and they haven't. So
yeah,
not a good one to predict where the industry is going. I do think it's going to get harder and harder to be a new, bigger brewery dependent upon distribution, because those channels are just too full, and that's why I went with what I went, where I just have a small 5-barrel system, and really my intent is to sell 90% of it out of my tap room. There's great local bars that love good craft beers, and I'd love to get it in there so people know about me. But mostly, I'm hoping to have people in here for a good time.
Yeah,
that might take some time now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, as more people start getting out, because the statistics are showing that people are drinking more quantity and more frequently, and starting earlier in the day, like me. So hopefully, we start to see this, this continue even after this whole thing stops. And we I have a question on that a little bit later. But let's talk about opening up during a pandemic. Despite having opened a designated brewery, Brother Chimp has been available for some time in locations around Chicagoland area, the closest being Gammon Coach House in Batavia and Hopfind in Naperville. Talk to us about Pilot Project Brewing and how that relationship started.
So one of the things I knew, and one of I saw, trying to figure out the business of it, right? Because it's not, I learned early on, I spent a few years thinking about this, just making good beer isn't enough to make it successful. And I think one of the things a lot of places struggle with is they get a double whammy where their construction delays and don't open as soon as they want. And then once they open, they need to then create enough beer to be able to sell. So they're kind of double delayed. And so while I was in the process of planning everything out and trying to think about how I might be able to contract brew, which is difficult before you have your brewer's license, which you can't get before you have your location, I found about Pilot Project, who was really setting up this incubator program almost like thing for people like me who are planning to open a brewery, in a way to kind of scale up your recipes and start kind of test marketing your beer as well on the market and having them available. So that really worked well for me. I kind of started working with them in early November of last year, I think, is when I put my first beer on tap at Gammon Coach House, which worked out really well for me. Everybody liked it. It was very positive. So I didn't get it into too many other places. It's hard to concentrate on build-out construction and marketing your beer places. But I had a couple of beers in at the beer cellar in Geneva. Actually, Barrel and Rye put on Smile for a while, which was great. Gammon Coach House said every one of my beers and actually did a beer dinner for me, which was wonderful. Yeah, right. Raimondo's had a couple of the beers on as well, and actually also did a Meet the Brewer night for me. So it was really great support I got from the local community on that. And then, so the story is, it came time to open, right? I had always said I didn't say it out loud. I always just threw out March is when I would open. But in my mind, I wanted to push my first beer across the bar for St. Patty's Day. I mean, what could be more perfect? Especially I had the dry Irish stout and the red ale. So Friday night at 6:30 before St. Patty's Day, I finally got my brewer's license. So that was the last thing I needed. I got my occupancy license 4:30 that day. So I'm like, this is really going to happen. I'm going to open up on Tuesday. So Sunday, I rent a truck, go downtown to Pilot Project to pick up all the beer I brewed, because I wasn't going to have to wait to brew beer to serve beer.
Right.
On the way down there, Pritzker announces that no more than 50 people in a bar in St. Patty's Day. Well, the truck couldn't take all the beer at once, so we had to make 2 trips. By the time we got there for the second trip, all bars closing 9 p.m. on Monday. So we actually threw our doors open for a couple hours at 5 p.m. We didn't really announce it just because I'd come too close to not open.
Right.
But I didn't know what the future was going to bring. So officially we did open before St. Patty's Day, but obviously it was later that week we started doing the growlers, and we've been doing the to-go, and really had wonderful support. A lot of people coming back. Really appreciate the local support and just trying to let people know that we're actually open. Because it seems like almost every day somebody comes in, I didn't know you guys were open. How long have you been here? I've had to be sign up for 2 months.
hopefully people watching this live and even after it's on YouTube and people can go back and watch it, people will start coming in the door. For those of you who are watching, obviously this is live right now on the 27th at 7:52. So if you guys have any questions for Steve, feel free to comment. We'll post them up on the video feed so that we can ask the questions and have them answered. Steve, one of the common themes with people in brewing in the brewing industry that I found is that brewery owners will almost always start out homebrewing before making the big leap to opening a brewery. Tell us about your days homebrewing and what advice you would give someone who's starting to homebrew.
So it's funny. So I'll date myself, but I graduated college in the mid-'90s. So before it was even legal to homebrew. So my best friend from college, though, as soon as it became legal, homebrewed. And I tried it, and I was like, okay, I could drink it, but why would I want to? It was the early days, and people didn't know. And I tried a couple of homebrews after that, and I always liked more meaty beers. I was the guy drinking Bass Ale in the early 80s when nobody else was.
Right.
So along the way, I just thought you couldn't brew beer well. And then I retired, I guess 5 years ago now, and my neighbor came over with some homebrew beer. I had no idea it was a homebrew, and it was fantastic. So I was like, this is great. You got to show me how you do this, because now I got some free time. And that's kind of got me jump-started into it. And he really explained to me, cleanliness, sanitize and clean everything. The rest of it, if you're a good cook, you can make good beer. And you don't even have to be a good cook. You just have to be able to pay a little bit of attention to detail. It's all time and temperature,
right,
and cleanliness, and then just your palate and experimenting with the grains and finding what you like. I was also really fortunate because Broken Bricks, the home brew shop in St. Charles, is where I went to start brewing. And a little funny story about that, I mentioned that I put my first beer on tap at Gammon in early November. when I was there, I ran into Jessica from the homebrew shop, who had helped me start brewing, and I hadn't seen her in at least 2 years. She'd taken a couple of years off of brewing. And so she really helped me get started in brewing, and she helped me come up with the description of my beer, and then she started sending me little things about that I could post on Facebook, and I finally was like, well, how about you do my social media? And she did, and now she's actually the taproom manager here. So really lucky to have her.
So you said that you had so you graduated college in the early 90s.
No. Early 80s.
Early 80s. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So because I was doing the math, because you said you retired. What was your profession before? Now I've known you for not very long.
Yeah.
But for those of you who I know none of you guys know this, but I work for a large home improvement retailer. And I actually met Steve through doing that. We supplied you with a lot of the material to get your doors open. I never knew what you did before this, but having worked with Alex in the past, the guys at Penrose, I just figured like, hey, this guy was really good at homebrewing. He just went for it. What did you do before this that you retired from?
So just before this, I worked for Boeing for 13 years almost.
Okay.
And I was in the exciting field of employee benefits. And then at the end, I was doing the work for all the human resource work for their mergers and acquisitions. So executive contracts, merging, benefit plans, payroll issues. Very, very exciting stuff.
You're putting me to sleep over here, Steve.
Yeah. All right. And that was my career before this. It was a good day.
Yeah. Obviously, you didn't plan on opening for business during a national pandemic, but that's exactly what ended up happening. Talk to us a little bit about the struggles that you went through opening during a shelter-in-place order.
So, the hardest thing I mentioned already, people don't know I'm open, right? My plan was to do a soft opening, and then eventually, probably sometime around now, a month or two into it, is when I would have planned for a grand opening in the parking lot, had all the bugs worked out. So I guess, the plus side is we're really getting a good opportunity to work out a lot of the bugs, the kinks.
Sure.
I can finish some of the decorating in the bar that I want to do and all. So I always do think you need to try and look at the bright side, especially during this pandemic. There are so many people so much more worse off than I am. I'm not worried about where my next meal is coming from, so I'm thankful for that. I mean, I do need to make this place successful. I'm trying to keep a couple of people employed and at least get enough money in the door to do that. So that becomes the biggest struggle, right? The first thing that happened when people started coming in is they want to taste the beer. Like, well, I can't let you taste the beer. I can only sell you beer to go. And at first, all I had was 64-ounce growlers. So quickly I went online and found these twisted cans. I'm like, I was thinking of getting one of the growler machines, but that's gonna be, now I'm laying out more capital to get one of those, and I got to wait to get those in. And I saw these twisted cans that I could get for 16 ounces, and it's really been great because it's let people get a more bite-sized taste of my beer and find out which ones they like. So that was one challenge, was finding a way to get a smaller to-go package, being a small brewery that couldn't do canning, to the customers.
Yeah. You mentioned that obviously, there is kind of a bright side to this whole thing, but one of the downsides is obviously that a lot of these, breweries are kind of struggling right now. But I want to talk for a minute about, now I'm a certified bourbon steward. I operate a whiskey society. I'm a bourbon guy myself. I love going to craft distilleries and major distilleries. I love going to craft breweries and microbreweries. But there's always one question that I had, and a good buddy of mine, Steve Reike, who's the most knowledgeable person on beer that I've ever met. I asked him, I said, when do you think it's going to get oversaturated? So the Brewers Association tracks data for some 8,000 plus breweries in the United States alone, each with an average of around 7 different offerings at any given time in the tap room. That's an average of 56,000 different beers, and that doesn't include things like limited offerings, special releases, and past releases that are no longer available. With so many options available, do you think at a certain point the market will just become way oversaturated, or do you think it has a lot to do with what's available in a certain area?
So exactly. I really think can it be oversaturated? Yes. And this is what I talked about first. When I decided to do this, I decided to do it as a neighborhood place because I do think you're getting to that saturation point when you're building a big enough brewery to where you have to rely on marketing through retail to make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
That just gets really difficult because there's so many different things out there already. And there's always going to be the exception to the rule that will break through and be the next kind of big thing. You know, I had a lot of friends too tell me, well, why don't you just do what Treehouse did? I don't know if you're familiar with Treehouse Brewing. I know you're more a bourbon guy, but there's this place in Massachusetts that just is like, they're known, they have hour-long wait for their beer, and they only sell it at their brewery. And they make it. They have this like cult following.
Sure.
Like, you just decide to have a cult following. Just that doesn't work. And I think a lot of people thought I was going to do something bigger than I'm doing too. And I'm like, no, because that would be a much bigger risk in my mind. There's always room for that local neighborhood pub, you know. So that's really what I'm trying to be. The only problem is, unless you're me, you can't drink whiskey in it. I mean, I wasn't a whiskey show and not have whiskey.
Exactly. Hey, I got beer tonight, so.
Yeah, well, I've got beer too, but so I really want to just be that local tavern that people want to come, have a good time, spend their Friday night, Saturday night, maybe come and catch the end of the baseball game in the afternoon while they finish up their work emails.
Sure.
And I think there's always room for that. But yeah, you know, I mean, if somebody wants to try and be the next Lagunitas or Stone Brewing or Revolution, those are getting hard to. That's going to be harder and harder to accomplish.
Right. So, a family friend of mine is on the, I guess we'll say like on the village board, or they're in the city council, or whatever you want to call it for North Aurora. I heard that you guys are the first brewery and tap room in North Aurora, and I can't remember if it was you that was telling me this or if it was this other person, but did they have to change the rules for you to open up your brewery here in North Aurora?
So they did create a new class of license for me in North Aurora, and I have to say the village was really great to work with. All of it. The first thing I had to go through was getting a special use permit to be able to brew on premise in this location because it's not what it was originally zoned for. And the next thing was to then get a specific license that would let me sell my beer and sell guest beers. And I'll probably always have a cider on tap too, because that's something I'm allowed to do. And I know some people need a gluten-free option, and if I find a good gluten-free beer, I'll put that on too. So they were great, and went through that process, and actually found out that it had all been approved and was good when I was hiking in Montenegro, and I got a call from the local reporter asking me what I thought of their decision.
Oh, well, I have no idea.
I said, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Can I call you back? I'm a little busy right now. So you mentioned ciders. One of my absolute favorites, and I think we had discussed this before, is Two Fools. Are you guys going to be working with them at all to put a cider on tap?
Yes. Yeah, I really want to have their rosé on. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it now, even actually.
Yeah, their rosé. For those of you, shout out to Two Fool Cidery, by the way, over there in Naperville, right across the parking lot. If anybody knows where Solemn Oath is at, it's actually just right across the parking lot. It's Two Fool Cidery, and they do. You're right. I mean, they have a phenomenal product. I do like the rosé. My fiance Dina just went there like 2 nights ago to pick up their strawberry banana cider, which is just
all their ciders are great. And I actually did a thing with them late last year. Was it this year? I can't remember when the date was, but they had their big cider festival, and they actually paired up snake bites with my dry Irish stout. So they're great people over there.
let's talk about food here real quick. One of the big popular things that a lot of these places like Riverlands and D&G and Penrose are doing is food trucks. Now, your parking lot is a little small because it's kind of like in a, not a strip mall, but there's several businesses over there. We also have Raimondo's that is over there. What are you guys doing as far as like food goes? Do you have plans to maybe bring in a sidewalk vendor or a food truck, or bring your own food?
So definitely you can bring your own food. You can order from Raimondo's. Pretty sure they'll bring it over here because they do now, and they've been a great partner for us because they've actually, if you order a pizza from Raimondo's and you want some beer from us, you have to call us to pay for it separately. But once you call and pay for it, they'll pick it up, so you get your cold pizza, your cold beer with your hot pizza at the same time. So definitely want to support the local options that are right here. People are welcome to bring that in. And on occasion, if it makes sense, I will have an occasional food truck and stuff out there now. Actually, I am talking to a couple of people about possibly doing something while we're on this kind of shutdown thing where it might make a little more sense. It's difficult because I'm not that big of a room for them,
Right.
Got to make sense for both people in that situation.
Yeah. Jason Pins asked, he probably jumped on a little late, but Jason, Brother Chimp is basically right on the corner of Randall and Orchard Road over there in North Aurora, right over by Raimondo's Pizza, actually over by the Turf Room, and they just put in that new hotel over there. Douglas Carpet is over there. There's also a little liquor store back there. And what hours, just so we know, what hours of the day are you guys open, so we don't come in too early or too late?
Yeah, I was just thinking I should have mentioned that, and they should be on the website too. But Monday through Thursday, we're open 3 to 7. Friday and Saturday, 12 to 8 p.m. And Sundays now we're just open 1 to 5 p.m.
Okay. So I'll have to swing
every day
tomorrow.
Just because we want to be that place you can always go to.
Sure. The Brewers Association released a survey on April 7th saying that 46% of craft breweries, which is about 3,800 nationwide, may be forced to close permanently within the next 3 months, and only about 5% of the 455 polled would last another year. Already there are some casualties. Argus Brewing in Chicago's Pullman neighborhood announced this week, or just last week actually, that it's closing after 10 years. This is obviously scary news for anyone in the craft beer industry. Do you see the craft beer industry bouncing back after this whole thing is over with?
I think that'll be interesting to see what happens with it. I think you'll see more small craft breweries like what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I think people would be a little gun shy of it's a big capital investment. Even this would be a much bigger capital investment than I first envisioned.
Sure.
I think one of the problems is everybody thinks because everybody's opening up a brewery, everybody's making a fortune.
Right.
And that's just a lot of people doing it out of a lot of passion and living on some pretty thin margins.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, it's a tough business to get into. Even craft distilleries or craft anything, craft soda, it doesn't matter. Yeah. The equipment that you guys use is specialty equipment. Sometimes running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can't even fathom the amount of money for your relatively small space that it costs. We look at some craft distilleries, like Whiskey Acres out there in DeKalb. Those copper stills are millions of dollars. It's not a cheap investment. We're very hopeful that the craft beer industry and the craft distilling industry is gonna bounce back, but it's gonna be kind of scary to see those that we've known for so long that just say, hey, sorry guys, we tried, but who could have ever guessed a global fucking pandemic?
Yeah, no, I did, and I'm really proud of my equipment. I spent a lot on it. It was made in New York, made in the country with U.S. government quality steel. So
yeah,
none of the stainless came from China. And it's a great system, which I'm actually hoping to break in the next few days here. Finally.
Yeah. So I'm always kind of fascinated with, looking at statistics and numbers and things like that. A disproportionate amount of sales at micro and craft breweries come from on-premise sales. Some statistics claim as high as 97%. With the current pandemic, breweries are shifting strategy to focus on curbside pickup and or delivery. As a brewery owner, do you see this trend of curbside pickup kind of taking off even after this pandemic has just kind of been wiped clean and everybody just forgets about it?
So I don't know if everybody will ever just forget about it. I think it's going to be a portion of the population that'll take longer to get comfortable coming back and sitting down in the pub. So I think that to go curbside pickup will be a bigger part of that. I should mention we also do delivery.
You do deliveries, yeah?
To,
Where do you deliver to? Just real quick, where do you deliver to?
Anything within a reasonable.
Sure.
So if you're interested in as long as you don't live, crazy distance away, give us figure out if we can do it for you.
So let's go back to this. Do you see this curbside? It seems like kind of like a no-brainer, even before this whole pandemic. That if we want people to come in, maybe they want to come in and grab a beer and just run right away, rather than sitting down and having one. Do you see that curbside continuing on after the pandemic is over?
Honestly, I think in a way it's starting even before that. I mean, the growler to goes had become for breweries. I mean, growlers were always there, but people always like the growlers too big. Honestly, I think I've got to do some math and decide between whether I'll get a actual growler machine or just stick with my 16-ounce twisty cans because, everything I've seen so far, the quality holds up great on them. And they're a little more expensive, but they're super easy and quick to fill for people.
Sure.
They don't have the same complexity and time as using a growler machine. But yeah, I think to go out of the tap room is going to become, and already was, but will remain an important part of being a successful local brewery.
Sure.
Because once you start packaging, that's the thing I kind of mentioned, I think, a little before we got on. Part of the double whammy problem right now is slower business, which I can't say slower because I wasn't open before. So not as much business as I would have anticipated. Sure. And then, you got to sell it at a reasonable price to the consumer. You can't charge what you would charge somebody for a pint sitting in the tap room, but it cost me a lot less to pour you a pint in the tap room than to put 16 ounces into a twisty can. Right. And I'm getting less for it. So those are the things you struggle with right now, but hopefully out of it you get some innovative ideas for when this is over and you do more of that to-go business. I think it will be an important part of being successful.
Yeah, and I agree. I think you're right with the crawlers and the growlers and stuff like that, but I think as just like you said, this thing isn't going to really go away anytime soon, and I think that breweries and distilleries or whatever you do are going to have to kind of adapt and continue that business model into the future, even after this pandemic is over, so that the people that are still kind of like a little weary about coming in have that option. Yeah. There is some good news in that Americans are still buying beer. A Nielsen analysis of sales through grocery markets, shops, and stores between March 29th and April 4th found that beer and cider sales were approximately 1/5 higher than what they were in last year. But experts say that most of the 8,000 plus craft breweries nationwide don't sell in grocery stores and can't afford to produce large cases. As a brewery owner who must adapt to these changes, do you expect we'll start to see more craft beers on shelves as craft breweries seek out distribution into restaurants and grocery stores?
I don't think they can. So depending on the size of the brewery, they just can't. There's no way I could try and package it at a price that's going to leave enough profit for everybody. There's just not the profit there when you're doing a smaller volume of beer.
Sure.
Some of the bigger ones, will probably have more local, they kind of can. But, you know, I'm 5 barrels until you're up to like a 15 barrel plus system. Trying to can and market retail is really hard. And you're still not going to, even the places that do that, that's kind of, it's supplemental revenue. If you can't have a quality tap room to go with that,
Sure,
you're not going to make it on just that.
right. Some more good news and perhaps a model for other breweries is what Fremont Brewing out of Seattle is doing, not only to keep employees, but to increase sales by launching a website dedicated to selling their beers. It worked out so well, in fact, that many of their beers sell out, and one limited release sold out in about 20 minutes online. Seeing what others have done, including those like Energy City and Batavia, does this give you some sort of motivation and hope for the near future of the craft brewing industry, in that people are kind of figuring out like, hey, we got to use social media and we got to use the internet to get people into the door? Does that kind of give you some sort of hope that this isn't as bad as it might seem?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to use it more effectively for myself, but that's still, you know, there are different models of how you go about doing it as to whether that works or not. And that's great. You have some places that can be really unique. They make some specialized beers, and they get this almost cult following for those beers. And you can sell those beers out quickly. Unless I'm going to completely change what I'm doing here, what I want in terms of, you know, craft beers that taste like beer and they're just good, enjoyable beers. I'm not going to get that kind of, oh, I have a new release and it's sold out in 20 minutes. It's not what I'm based on. So I've got to be able to find a way to last through this until people can come back into the tap room. For me to make it.
So now that we have the hard hitting questions out of the way, let's get back to you know, some of the more fun questions. It surprises people when they ask me what the best whiskey is that I've ever had, and my answer to them is it was a glass of Gentleman Jack right after I proposed to my fiance. It was the best whiskey I've ever had in my life. In most cases, it's not the thing that you're drinking, but the place and the people that you're with and the place that you're at that really kind of make that moment and that drink so special. I interviewed Mark Kokel last week with One Trick Pony Brewing out in Lansing, Illinois, and he said the best beer he ever had was a Budweiser on the train home from a hard day's work. What is the best beer? Knowing all of that, what is the best beer you've ever had?
Oh, I should have been ready for this one.
See, that's the tough question. Those are the tough ones.
It really is. There's so many good beers. But I would say the best beer I ever had was the Dragon's Milk after I finished my first triathlon. It was a sprint. Oh. It wasn't anything crazy. But yeah, that beer after finishing a race, that reward. And actually, I would tell you the best whiskey I ever had.
There you go.
Actually, after completing that. Because I bought myself a bottle of, I believe it was 1861 Macallans. They had actually, God, how long ago? It was over 10 years ago. They made these replicas by taking samples from old bottles and tried to replicate them and put them in an old-looking bottle. And it was a fairly expensive bottle, I don't know just how much. But I remember buying it for myself, and I was not allowed to open it until I concluded that triathlon. That was the best whiskey I ever had.
What was the triathlon that you completed?
It was the Batavia Sprint Triathlon. It was not that big, but for a guy who was a potato, it was, you know, a big deal.
So I've got a Desert Island whiskey. It's actually a bottle of Four Roses. If I can point, it's this bottle right here. I only open it. Yeah, I only here. So this is an old bottle. This is a 1948 Four Roses. I got this at a more or less at an estate sale. But that's it. I opened it, and it's probably one of the best whiskeys I've ever had. So everybody's got, you know, kind of their Desert Island book, their Desert Island this, that, and the other. It's that one thing that if you're going to be stuck on a desert island that you want every day for the rest of your life. What is your desert island beer?
Jeez. Wow. So,
Now keep in mind, over the year, I mean, like I said, there's an average of about 56,000 at any given time.
well, I know,
There's a lot.
Desert island. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm hot and it's cold, and I'm gonna go with my blonde ale.
Okay.
If I'm on a desert island, Kima is my blonde ale. It's named after one of my youngest dog, and she's just fun. So
Sure. So tell us, I'm always kind of interested in, when I read reviews on something or if I'm going to try something new, I try to find a review on it or some kind of taste profile or what I'm looking for. Regarding your blonde ale, because that's kind of my style of beer too. I do like the stouts. I like porters. I like those big kind of oomphy beers. But I also like I like Kolsch. I like, like Energy City has those fruit sours that I really love. Regarding the blonde that you just mentioned, what can people kind of expect with that? Because that's the one I think I might come pick up tomorrow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty light one, but still has some nice flavors and some spicy notes to it. The main hops I use in it is called, I'll say it wrong. It's sriracha. It's just got some nice light spicy notes to it. So it's not overly hoppy at all. It's mostly a nice, clean, refreshing blonde ale. All I can say is it's the perfect beer after you mow the lawn.
Yeah, that's a really good description of a beer. I never thought of that before. What do you want to drink after you mow the lawn?
Right, and it's only 4.2 ABV. So great thing is when you finish that first one, you don't have to feel bad about having the second one you're going to want.
Right. What about on the darker side? If I wanted something that was, as dark as I can get that you offer, what would I be picking up?
Oh, as dark as I offer, you wanted the dark one, I'd go with the Smile.
What's
one of my favorite brown ale. So it's an English brown ale versus American. So it's more sweeter than hoppier, but not overly sweet by any means. But it's just got a wonderful richness about it. As I said, I do just, the vanilla that I put in there, I think is only enough to kind of cut the coffee a little bit. So I'm not going to say you're going to have some big vanilla note when you drink it. When I do adjuncts in my beer, I really don't like them to be big notes. I like them to be subtleties that you got to kind of work to pick out of them.
Sure.
But it's one of my favorite beers that I made. It was one of the first beers I started playing around with the recipe on my own for. So
when I talk to brewers and even distillers, I always ask the question, aside from your own beer, what is that one brewery or distillery that you're looking at, seeing what they're doing and saying, those guys are doing something really special. We need to keep on an eye on those guys. Aside from Brother Chimp, who are you kind of looking at and saying, like, man, these guys are really doing something interesting. They're doing great stuff. Go check these guys out.
So there are a few. So one that I love and I'm kind of tied to, because we didn't talk about how I actually got started to the brewery, but I did go through an incubator program at Skeleton Key Brewery in Lamont and Westmont. Anyway, wonderful beers. They do a lot, kind of the same thing as me. I would say a lot of it is beer that tastes like beer. They just all come out really well. I love their Scotch Ale, which is Don't Blink, which is not available often enough. And then they also have a great APA called Friends Don't Lie that I need to get over and get before it's gone. Somehow, I also, a lot of respect for what Alex does up at D&G.
Up at D&G, yeah.
And while I'm not the biggest hazy guy in the world, the hazy IPAs out of Riverlands are some really nice special beers. And I haven't had them yet, but another place that's going to be opening soon, Art History of Beer in Geneva.
Yeah.
Had some of the home brews that Tom has made, and he's working with another brewer up there. But I'm excited to get to try those beers as well. And if I'm ever going to have a sour, it's probably going to come from Penrose.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Tom over at Art History, because I actually emailed him, I want to say on Friday, and he just got back to me this morning. Similar to you, I worked with him to kind of help him get his brewery together and get him off the ground. I don't believe he's opening until May, but there's so many different breweries that are opening up now. I heard, and I'm not trying to spoil anything here. I'm not going to give anything away. What do you think will happen with the breweries that are all opening up here in the Fox Valley? Do you think there will be some kind of club or something that can happen where there's almost kind of like the Bourbon Trail, right? You've got the Kentucky Bourbon Trail down there that starts in Louisville and runs through. Do you think there will ever be some sort of like Fox River or whatever kind of trail? Start here, end here, and let's
Fox Beer Trail.
There you go. You said it, not me.
Yeah, I did. I really would like to get that going. Actually, and I've got the domain to do it.
Yeah.
So I just need to now find the time or somebody who's willing to work with all the brewers, because it really starts in McHenry and goes down, I think, past Oswego. Where there are brewers. So I think it would be great, and I hope that all happens. And I hope everybody's still here after all.
Yeah, and that's the tough question is, who's still going to be around? Hopefully everybody. But
right. But you don't know how long it's going to last, right?
True. Yeah.
So honestly, if I start having people in my tap room before the end of the summer, I feel pretty comfortable.
Right.
Rules beyond that,
Yeah.
We'll see. I might be able to find a way to expand my to-go sales and make it work. I'm going to be trying, but it's
it's definitely tough. I mean, this whole thing has been tough on everyone, and we've talked to breweries and distilleries, and we always talk about the restaurant industry, and this industry, whether it's food and the food and beverage industry, and it's kind of sad to even think about that. That brewery or that restaurant or that pub or whatever that you used to go to, in 6 months might not be there anymore. So it's really more now than ever. Those restaurants and those breweries and distilleries and pubs and those places that sponsored your kids' little league, baseball team, those are the ones that we need to be supporting now.
I would say it's really nice, especially because I wasn't even here before, but I have just a ton of people coming in from the community wanting to support the community. So that's great to see.
Yeah.
But one thing I don't want to forget to mention before we go, I posted the other day, a couple of strangers came to the bar. And one of them is this strange, mysterious chap in a monk's uniform. And I told people at the time, if anybody can guess who this actually is, there is a free growler in it for them.
Really?
Yes. And this is his good buddy, Bumble, who he tends to hang out. And I feel a lot in the morning for these two, though.
The one that's under the mask, is it somebody that is it like a character or something that we would all be pretty familiar with?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a character. Everybody would know.
Okay. All right, I'll have to get my guesses in. Can you give us a hint? A very vague hint.
Well, it's not a monk.
Well, there you go. So I'm gonna try to swing by, either tomorrow or later on this week. We talked about your blonde. We talked, we kind of went through both spectrums. You said you have 6 beers on tap. If I want maybe something in the middle, because there's so many different styles out there, and there's so many different people that are into this, they're into that. What about middle of the road between that blonde that you have and between that darker beer that you have? What's a good, just kind of, I learned the word quaffable like 2 months ago, and I didn't know. I was actually on Untapped, and I found the word quaffable, and I thought, what? That can't be a word. So I had to look it up, and sure enough, quaffable is just sessionable. It's an easy drinker. It means something you can drink a lot.
I know, but that's what I don't like on tap.
So I saw quaffable. I'm like, I don't know if I don't want to repeat that word. I don't know what I'm saying there. What's kind of like middle of the road that you guys have? That's something that they don't want real light, but they don't want real heavy. What's kind of like that middle of the road?
So the three I would say are most middle of the road. It'll be back soon is for the masses, which is what I name my IPA, which people who know me know I'm not a big IPA guy. So it's kind of a little double entendre with the brother and the mass and making it for the masses because But I really like it. It came out just like I wanted it. And then I would say the Brigadoon, which is my take on an English pub ale and ESB, and probably that red ale, which is probably a little bit drier than the ESB, but those would be the middle ground ones.
Do you have anything? I mean, obviously, I know you just opened up and you're still kind of trying to figure out where everybody's coming from and what they're drinking. Do you have anything maybe in the works that you really want to start soon that you can announce that we should look out for in the coming months?
So the first would be so part of what I spend a lot of money on are these two lagering tanks to stack, because lagers are a little bit different. They take a little longer than the ales, and they really like to ferment in a horizontal vessel versus a vertical vessel. So look for some lagers coming soon. I'm going to do my take on American Pils will be probably the first or second beer that I brew, and hopefully be ready by the end of the pandemic, which hopefully
whatever that's going to be.
May, yeah. So look for some lagers coming soon. Probably I'm also going to repeat. There are a couple that we've got that have been popular that are running out, so I probably will remake those before I start to expand.
Sure.
So people get what they like. I mean, I've been really happy. People keep coming back and getting the same beer.
Yeah.
I like.
Now, obviously, being a bourbon guy myself, I always look for those bourbon aged, barrel aged, this, that, or the other. Anything that you have kind of in the works, or anything that you want to do that's bourbon barrel aged?
I would like to at some point probably do an imperial stout. Not sure how far off that is. And part of the problem is when people come and they see the space, it's small. I got to figure out where I put the barrel.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's that. And then what I'm looking forward to do is doing some saisons and other farmhouse style ales and a Belgian.
Sure.
Just by, to get a couple of Belgians done as well.
Yeah.
We won't do too many of those just because they're a little bit. It's hard to do a light Belgian.
Right. So hopefully, we get some people out there this week. I know I'm going to try to stop by either tomorrow or Wednesday to pick something up. Steve, thanks so much for spending some time with us tonight. I know you close the brewery at 7 and you want to get home. Tell us one more time where and what we can pick up at Brother Chimp Brewery.
So you can pick up at 1059 West Orchard Road, just west of Randall Road on Orchard Road in North Aurora by Douglas Flooring. Right now, we have 5 offerings of our own. We have a blonde ale, a red ale, a brown ale, a stout, and a ESB. And we also have guest taps, 2 guest kind of bigger IPAs from Brewer's Kitchen and D&G in St. Charles. Best way is to call us in advance at 630-800-1724, and we'll make sure your order is ready for you. We do allow people to come in one at a time to pick up if that's their preference, but you can also pay over the phone, and we'll do contactless curbside pickup for you as well. You can get more information about us at our website, which is all the usual acronyms in Brother Chimp Brewing.
Gotcha.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Like I said, I'll try to get out there this weekend, and hopefully everybody that watched tonight or watches this this interview in the future comes to pay you a visit. It's very important to obviously support local businesses right now, whether it's a brewery or a restaurant or whatever you want. So, Steve, thanks so much for coming out tonight. Everybody out there in the world of the internet, thanks for watching, and we will see you guys Wednesday. We're going to be talking with the North American brand ambassador for Glencairn Crystal. So that's going to be a pretty wild story. He's a pretty interesting guy. So, Steve, thank you so much, and everybody.